Hi guys, my name's Kathryn Vinclaire. I'm a white woman with long blonde hair and blue eyes. I'm wearing light makeup and a light blue crop top with my hair down. I've got headphones on and I'm in a hot, sweaty recording booth. So I'm a casting director and a voice actor, and I've been a part of the video games industry for about 6 years now. This talk is titled, "The Final Boss Has Lost Her Voice." I'm neurodiverse, but the biggest impact of my life and career has come from my vocal disability. I've got a partial paralysis of one of my vocal cords, which means that my voice sounds a bit different. It's what's creating this sort of raspy, husky sound when I speak. This vocal paralysis just means that one of my vocal cords can't move over to meet the other vocal cord in order to produce sound. So my false vocal cords, known as my vestibular folds, have since birth mimicked what vocal cords are meant to do, allowing me, thankfully, to speak. It doesn't hurt when I speak. I've not lost my voice. This is just what my voice sounds like. But this talk is titled, "The Final Boss Has Lost Her Voice," because I voice a lot of powerful, deadly villains. But my day-to-day life is spent in the far less powerful position of constantly having to explain to people that I work with and friends and people that I meet in general that I haven't lost my voice, and my voice just sounds like that. It literally happened this morning when I was in Tesco's grabbing some food before this talk. The cashier just assuming that something had happened to my voice. And to be perfectly honest with you, I tend to just go along with it. If someone goes, "Late night," I go, "Yeah," because it's easier to explain than sitting someone down, a complete stranger, and explaining a vocal disability to them. So I want to use this talk as an opportunity to share my journey through my disability into the work that I do in video games today, and how that has helped and hindered my career. But most importantly, I think, the impact that I and other people with disabilities and neurodiversity can have on the industry right now and long into the future. So, a bit about the work I've done. In voice acting, you've heard me in productions for the likes of Bethesda, Warhammer, and Crow Team, in productions like Star Trek Fleet Command, Conan Exiles, and the recently released Yes, Your Grace Snowfall. In my work in video game casting, I am the voice and casting director for Albion Online from Sandbox Interactive, and the recent release of Duck Detective: The Ghost of Glamping, and heaps of other indie productions that you'll hear about over the next few years. Outside of my day-to-day paychecks, I am a very proud member of BAFTA Connect and have been a judge this year at the BAFTA Young Game Designers Awards. I'm also a hugely proud member of the Impact cohort between Yuki and Manycat Studios. I was part of the inaugural cohort and have recently been a speaker at Pocket Gamer Connect Barcelona. So I want to talk a bit about my disability story, and then how I work with my disability in this industry and how it presents itself in my work, and how I push past the challenges and limitations that this disability brings me. And I'd like to end on how I believe I can have a positive impact and hopefully encourage others to do the same through our disabilities and neurodiversity. So my disability story is actually a tale of growing up with a disability, but not knowing that you have a disability. So this is about the education that I had into what I live with day to day, which now leads me to educate others around me in life and in my professional work. So I was born with this disability. I've never known anything other than this voice and this level of ability to speak. As a girl, I was met with daily comments about my voice from everyone around me. Some of these were filled with care. "Have you lost your voice?" Or concern. "Oh, you poor thing, your voice sounds wrecked." A bit like that cashier at Tesco's this morning. It literally still happens. Or, sadly, unhelpful, suggestive comments about my voice being sexy. Awkward, right? But those comments started when I was just 10 years old. So I've lived with knowing that this voice is different, knowing that it is something that strangers, as well as people who know me and love me, feel they have cause to comment on, to point out, and to ask questions about. It caused a reaction in people, whether good or bad. Like many of us who've grown up with neurodiversity or a disability or both, I was rather terribly bullied for it for pretty much all of my childhood and teenage years. I was called donkey a lot, and I've had countless people do very unkind impersonations of my voice. Some people do it and it's just nice and it comes from a place of kindness and there's a compliment in there. But certainly as a child there was an awful lot of donkey. So you do tend to push past that sort of thing as a child, you know, and it wasn't the only thing I was bullied for, so it didn't really stand out to me. It was just one of several things that someone might choose to comment on. But the challenges started for me when I was struggling in class with the vocal stamina of my voice. So I would lose my voice very easily, and I'd also struggle to be heard in classes because this is a very quiet voice. I'm in a booth now with the microphone turned way, way up. I have the mic so much higher than my counterparts because it is a quieter voice. So in the booth it's fine, but in real life it's a bit of a challenge. I have to push the sound of my voice just to be heard. So what came off of the back of that was speech therapy, which included the first of a rather terrifying laryngoscopy, which is where they put a camera up your nose and down into your larynx while you're still awake and you speak as best you can, trying to push past your gag reflex, and they can take a look at how your vocal cords work, or in my case don't quite work, and how your body is able to produce sound. So when I was about 15 years old, I had that first laryngoscopy, which revealed that I had vocal paralysis. So I'd had 15 years on the planet before I even realised that I had anything particularly wrong with me. I was offered injections, which would help move or sort of change the way that the vocal cord is able to interact with the rest of my vocal kit, shall we say. And I was also offered surgery where they would physically take the paralysed cord, move it over slightly so it's closer to the fully working vocal cord, and sort of stitch it into place. But I was warned that there wasn't really any concrete way of being able to tell how that would alter my voice. But one thing was for certain: I wouldn't sound like myself. I wouldn't sound husky or breathy or raspy. And as much as I'd been bullied for it, that sound that you hear right now was as much a part of my life as a teenager as it is today. And the idea of having surgery and waking up with someone else's voice was terrifying to me, so I opted against it. Off the back of that, I just carried on knowing that I had a paralysed vocal cord and had some speech therapy to try and help the volume and the stamina of my voice. But I still didn't know it was a disability. It wasn't actually until literally just 2 years ago, another 15 years on from that initial vocal paralysis discovery, that I had a conversation with someone who described my paralysis as what it has always been, a disability. And a whole new world of improved understanding opened up to me. This wasn't just a bad voice day or part of my everyday expected experience that I should just brush off. It was a daily challenge that I'm constantly battling against and working through with every single word that I say, both in the recording booth and outside of it. Now, that's more than enough about me and the disability. What I'm most excited to share with you is how it interacts with my work in the video games industry. So the biggest challenge I find is that I'm working against people's assumptions. Before taking on the biggest video game role of my entire career, something that I'm still waiting to share with you guys when it comes out hopefully in the next 12 months. The studio pulled me into a meeting before they fully cast the role. I was down to the final 2, and I knew that this would be a career-defining role for me were I to get it. And they pulled me into a little meeting and delicately asked, with kindness, would my voice be up for the challenge of such a large role? Because when you describe yourself as being disabled, people don't know the parameters and the limitations and the challenges of that disability. But similarly, they don't know how strong you are, how adept you are in working around it, and how skillful you are having lived with it for several years, or for many of us, our entire lives. Thankfully, I was able to convince them and dissuade them from negatively assuming, inaccurately assuming, that I wouldn't be up for the task, and the role is now recorded safely in post-production. But I am working against the limitations of performance as well. As much as this is also a quiet voice, there are certain things I can't do. I don't have an enormous amount of range. Pushing past the husky sound in my voice is a challenge. I also can't scream, for example. I just physically can't. These vocal cords mean I can't produce that particular sound. I'd kind of love to be able to. I'm very curious to know how it feels to produce that sound. But I was once in, again, the top 2 for a lead role in what would have been my first ever audio drama and my first ever lead role several years back. And in the end, the team gave the role to the other performer because I'd come forward about my vocal disability and said, well, I can't scream and cry and shout especially easily. And they said, well, you're perfect for the role, but we need someone that can do a bit more, has a bit more dexterity in their voice. So we've had to give it to the other person, despite me being a great match for the role in every other element of that character. The other challenge I find is not everyone that I work with knows that I'm going to sound like this. So whenever you're cast in something, there are often a small team of people involved in the recording process. Some of those people will have been involved in you being cast, and as a result, they will have heard your audition and they'll know what to expect when you open your mouth to speak. But not everybody involved in the recording process actually has heard my voice before they come to record with me. So I've had audio engineers, producers, directors, and clients that I've worked with all chip in at various points throughout my career. And they don't expect it to sound like this. And I've had to work to actively placate people's concerns. And I've even had multiple moments in my career where clients have been a little rude, a little presumptuous. Some have even insisted that I've put a filter on, or that my microphone is turned the wrong way around, or that there's something wrong in my technical audio chain of this expensive, highly tuned setup that I'm recording in right now, because they're not used to hearing the voice sound like this. And sometimes they can't take my word for it, which is awful. The vast majority, however, I am able to talk to and communicate with openly, and they are very, very happy to take me on board just as I am. The other challenge I have is in post-production. Several editors that I've worked with in the past don't know how to edit this voice. People often have preset chains when they come to edit audio, and they know what they're trying to do to level every voice in, say, one video game. If there's a scene with multiple characters speaking, they'll apply largely similar chains to the post-processing, just to bring each voice up to a nice, neutral space, so they all sound pretty similar in the game. The problem is if you do that to my voice, using the same post-processing that you've done for every other voice, it's going to sound really weird, because I'm essentially missing several frequencies from my voice that you have in most other voices because of the huskiness and the breathiness. So I've heard really decent performances that I've given in some productions be rather poorly edited because they just don't quite know how to work with this voice. But it's not all bad, I promise you. I push past these challenges with some real benefits to having this particular disability. My diversity directly impacts the diversity of the casting that I do with my casting service in indie video games. So I work to bring actors into independent video games. And because I am casting with the lived experience of being disabled and neurodiverse, I cast with that sensitivity and understanding built in. I'm more prepared when working with other neurodiverse and disabled creatives, and can often cast people's differences without the difference being the highlight of their role or their characterization. Just because someone is disabled or neurodiverse doesn't mean it has to be something that sticks out like a sore thumb, unless it is something that is being specifically called upon within the casting. The other benefit that you might have guessed is it's quite nice to become known for this voice. So I often get roles where the casting directors and producers will say to me, well, we weren't casting for a husky voice, but then as soon as we heard your interpretation of the role, you sounded so different to everyone else, but also so right for it, because we hadn't envisioned this character having a particularly breathy, husky sound, but it just fits. So I sometimes come in as a bit of a wild card of casting, because I can't help the way I sound, and sometimes it's just right for what people are looking for. It sticks out like a sore thumb, which is challenging, but also fantastic. It means it's instantly recognizable, and that can be hugely beneficial in an oversaturated industry where there are, let's face it, a lot of middle-class white girls vying for similar performances. At conferences and networking events, I've also learnt over the last 2 years to advocate for my voice and for my disability. And I mean that in both the more heightened sense of giving talks and being a part of things like this, where I'm literally advocating for a better understanding of neurodiversity and disability within the industry, but also just in terms of how I interact with people day to day. So I am getting so much better in the last couple of years at asking people to help me communicate with them with my disability. It'll sound like, hey, can we move away from the bar area just to keep this conversation going because it's super loud here? Or can I just move a bit closer to you while we chat? Or even, can I just repeat myself or speak a bit slower so that you can properly hear what I'm saying? And this is something I really encourage everyone to do. You have an opportunity to educate those around you. The nice thing I want to end with is a slightly hopeful element to all of this, in that my characters have stronger voices than me. The nice thing about being in a booth is you can just turn the gain up on your microphone, and suddenly this quiet little voice is loud enough to shout across entire vast landscapes of impeding armies of characters in these video games. So even though my voice may be quiet, the villains that I play have voices that carry across entire worlds. And that is something very beautiful that this industry has provided me with, that I would never have found had I not stepped into the booth and found my voice. Because truly, this final voice, this final boss really sounds like she has lost her voice. But the truth of the matter is, it's stronger than ever and made all the more powerful because of what this industry provides me. Thank you guys so much. Please come and connect with me on Instagram. You'll find me at Kathryn Vinclaire. I'm always happy to have a chat about neurodiversity, disabilities, casting, video games, all sorts of fun stuff. And it'd be lovely to hear from you guys. Have a great rest of the day.